All right. It is the Senior Bowl week. It is the first real holiday of NFL draft season, right? It is that time where some of these top prospects are going to get out on that field and really show some of the people at the top of the NFL draft boards what they really have. Down there representing Locked On Eagles is Louis DiBiase. He's really taking it in. He's our eyes on the field. How are you doing down there, Louis?
Cal, I'm doing great. Like you said, this is really where the draft starts and the offseason starts for the Philadelphia Eagles. They got 3 first-round draft picks this year. They have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. So they're definitely going to be doing their due diligence. I saw Howie Roseman down here, Nick Sirianni. There's a lot of prospects that should interest the Eagles early and late in this process. So it's been exciting to be down here.
So it's your first time down at the Senior Bowl. I mean, what is it like? What's your first impressions of being there around all this NFL talent?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a nice change of pace too. Haven't covered anything live since the pandemic, and just to see the whole NFL down here, it's such an important process for both teams and prospects, right? Prospects to raise their stock, smaller school guys to show that they can play with, Ohio State cornerbacks and, Alabama defensive linemen. I think it's a really important process for both sides and for teams it's the first time they can really see these guys up close and personal and see if the tape confirms a lot of what they like or dislike about a prospect. So it is a really important part of it, and you see a lot of stars come out of here from all positions, and I think that's going to happen again this year.
So far, first time down there, has there been anything that has kind of surprised you about this process in this week so far?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think you notice how even with just both sides, you have the Jets right now coaching the American team, the Lions coaching the national side, but how involved the teams, the entire NFL is with this process is super interesting. And there's just a lot going on, and you talk about it's not just on the field stuff, but I'd imagine there's talks going on off the field with just everybody being down here. News really does circulate, and I think things just can kickstart not only with again, the draft, but there's so many agents down here and so many general managers and scouts that, things are going to start up from here when it comes to free agency and trade talk. And so it's really just, of course it's the Senior Bowl and it's important for the draft process, but it really does kick the entire offseason off.
Absolutely. And for NFL draft prospects, it's their chance to really obviously make that last impact for, some pro days and things of that nature, but to really work with the team. So far, first couple of days, has there been anybody that has stood out to you so far?
Yeah, there really has. I think Malik Willis is stealing the show at the quarterback position. The Liberty quarterback has the most physical upside of anybody in this class. And it's the narrative right now is it's not a great quarterback class, but I think you put Willis in last year's prospect pool, the year before that, I think he has as much upside as anybody, as a Trey Lance or, to me, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. You look at the guys that last year people speculated the Eagles could be interested in. I think Malik does present that same upside when it comes to mobility. Seeing his speed live, he has a gear that not many quarterbacks have had outside of Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson and a few others. But you see some of the maturity and the more advanced passing repertoire he has than many people really expect. I thought in the pocket he looked great this week, but the person that did steal the show, the prospect on defense, is Florida State edge rusher Jermaine Johnson. I mean, the power, speed, violence this guy plays with, he has been the energy bunny for everybody down here. And just, I think he's a perfect type of edge rusher that can also play inside that the Eagles would be really interested in with their first 3 picks. And they like a guy that can play inside and out. Brandon Graham, today's the 4th year anniversary of the Super Bowl win. Brandon Graham got that strip sack on Tom Brady playing inside. And so I think Jermaine Johnson's been the best player down here, and he's at a position the Eagles need help with. And they prioritize the offensive and defensive line more than anything outside of probably quarterback. So I would say Malik Willis and Jermaine Johnson are the 2 that have stolen the show the most.
On the other side of that, obviously, is the players that might have struggled so far or not put out the best showing that they had hoped for so far this week. There are a couple guys that might have stood out to you on the negative side.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed so far. I think Desmonritter, the Cincinnati quarterback, has made some really nice throws that you're like, okay, I can see the upside. I can see the power and the arm strength that he does have. And, there's a lot to like there, but also there's a lot of room for him to develop. And I think if you would consider, if the Eagles are going to consider a first round pick and at quarterback, and Desmonritter is one of the options, you're going to have to probably be more patient. I think mechanically it does still seem like he's a step back from maybe some of the others. There's just too many times where he underthrows a play. It's harder for him to make the easy completions. And I'm saying to myself, for a guy that has that kind of physical upside and the traits that he does possess, he shouldn't be as inconsistent as he's been. Of course, the weather's been a factor. It was pouring rain during Wednesday's practice, but I would like to see more consistency with Ritter. He definitely would still be on my board as a first round option because of the upside. But at the same time, I do think he has a lower floor. So it'll be interesting to see, how NFL teams view him potentially as a, player at the next level.
Being so close to State College and being our Penn State channel that we are, obviously we're always hoping for those former Nittany Lions to perform well in the NFL. What have you seen from any of the former Penn Staters at this year's Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I think there's some players down here from Penn State that, and a couple aren't practicing, but they should be first round picks at the worst, second round picks. And they're at positions on both sides of the football that probably should interest Philadelphia. I think you look at safety Jaquan Brisker, and you also look at wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Haven't really noticed much of them on the field this week, but at the same time, just having them down here, maybe getting to talk with the Eagles and other organizations, you put on the tape and you're really going to like what these guys have to offer with Dotson. He's under 6 foot, but he's got some of the best hands in this draft class. You can throw it up and he can high point the football. Just because he's not over 6 feet doesn't mean he can't bring down contested plays. He's explosive. He can play inside and out. A lot of people right now want to pinpoint for the Eagles wide receiver 2 spot. They want a taller, more physical receiver to complement Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins. But to me, you can't force a certain role, kind of like you did with the Jalen Reagor pick. You got to just get production at wide receiver. So take the best player at that position. That was the Reagor, Justin Jefferson thing back in 2020. So I think Dotson should interest the Eagles and a lot of NFL teams. I think he'll be a lower first round pick. And then Jaquan Brisker is a do-it-all safety that can come downhill, a great tackler, in cover 2, which the Eagles play a lot. I think he can close in and help you in the deep game. I think he's a player that should interest the Eagles, considering how they've kind of not ignored the safety position, but they had Malcolm Jenkins and Rodney McLeod for so long that they didn't really need to invest a lot of resources in it. McLeod's a free agent this year and he's older. Anthony Harris is a free agent. You really don't have much at that position. You're going to probably have to take a guy on the second and third level, i.e., whether it's at linebacker or safety with those 4 picks, you're going to have to at least invest 1 pick in one of those positions. And I think Brisker should interest the Eagles, and you could probably get him closer to that second round pick.
The Eagles love the Senior Bowl. It is something they have shown year after year. They're going to pick some guys that impress them down at the Senior Bowl. So your impressions this week, they're in an unprecedented situation with 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, it's a rare opportunity.
Absolutely it is. And you could really, even into the second and third rounds in this draft, really build depth throughout this roster. So gut feel, watching a couple of days here of practice, any specific way you think they're going to go here?
Yeah, I think they're going to come away with an edge rusher. I think they have to, considering Brandon Graham's coming off a torn Achilles. Howie Roseman said a few weeks ago, he still thinks he has a role in this defense, but how much longer does he have left? And Derek Barnett's a free agent. You got nothing from Ryan Kerrigan last year. He's a free agent as well. Josh Sweat is established. He had a contract extension this year. You have him for the future, but the Eagles like to be 4 deep on the edge. And right now they're 1 or 2. So they definitely need an edge rusher. And this class is way better than last year's. Again, Jermaine Johnson is just 1, but Maji Sanders as well from Cincinnati has really impressed. And he's a speed rusher off the edge that would be really good for this team, maybe in the second round. And I think they're going to go edge. They're going to take an offensive lineman at some point. I do know that they don't philosophically believe in investing a lot in safety and linebacker early in the draft, but I think with the flexibility you have with 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, that you got to invest at least 1 pick there, especially with the way this defense last year, what they needed from those 2 positions. So I don't want to say they ignore it, but I do think this year presents an opportunity to really invest and get some young talent on defense. I think defense, if they're not going quarterback, it's got to be a defensive centric draft.
You mentioned Malik Willis, talking about quarterback. Has his performance this week kind of, do you think, even changed the perception, even around the NFL a little bit, that this guy could really be maybe even the first quarterback taken in the NFL draft this year?
I think it should. And I don't even think it should have had to take this week's performance for people to believe in that upside. And, the arm talent, I think there's just sometimes narratives that form around mobile quarterbacks, small school players. And when you combine both, is he a finished product? No, not at all. He is not an Andrew Luck prospect for sure. There are things to his game, the mental clock, processing, reading defenses, throwing with more anticipation. Those things can get better for sure. But, if you want a player in this class that's going to become a star, the next Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson type that wasn't a top 3, top 5 pick, but can turn into a star if you bank on that upside. It is Malik. And I think he is really turning heads. You can tell, just seeing scouts and, coaches from other teams, even the teams that don't need a quarterback, everything this week has gravitated towards Malik. And I'm excited to see what he does in the game when he has a more exciting opportunity to use his legs, because that is the rare trait he does possess. So I would say when it's all said and done, Kale, that he's going to be at least a top 10 pick. So, people are saying the Eagles could get him later on. I don't think that's true. I think he's going to be a top 10.
Me feeling the temperature of the fan base and everything like that makes me feel like the idea has shifted. It's now aiming that we should probably trade for that veteran quarterback this offseason. So what would you say if the plans change? Eagles are able to even snag him at 16, move up maybe into the top 10 and take a Malik Willis. What would you say to fans about that move?
I would understand it, and I would say don't be surprised. You saw when they signed Sam Bradford to a contract extension in 2016. A month later, they traded up for Carson Wentz. They drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round when they had Wentz. After Nick Foles won a Super Bowl and Wentz was coming back from injury, they kept Foles around and paid him more money. This team prioritizes quarterback more than anything. Howie Roseman himself claimed them to be a quarterback factory, and they want to be not just deep at the position, but they want to be elite. And if they don't believe that Jalen Hurts can get better to the point where he is, you look at that Chiefs-Bills game, can he be dropped into that situation and thrive? Can you be a player that they win because he's throwing 30, 40 times a game? If they don't believe that, do not be surprised at all if they make that kind of move. They don't really care about public perception, clearly. So they want to be elite at quarterback. And I would not be surprised if they believe Malik has the higher ceiling and he can be that player. They're going to pull the trigger. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I think it would be smart to heavily consider that.
That's where I was going to go next. You said it exactly. So who do you think has the higher ceiling, Malik Willis or Jalen?
Yeah, I think it's Malik Willis, and I think they both have the mobility, but Willis has more explosion in his running style. I think too, he's got a bigger arm. He can make more throws that Jalen Hurts really doesn't even think to make, and some he just can't make because of the arm strength difference. I think both of them can get better in certain areas, but I think one thing Willis does have that Jalen needs to work on more is that pocket awareness and knowing when to drop his eyes and run, but also knowing when to use his legs to keep play moving for the pass, and also when to stick in there and climb the pocket and make throws still. I think he's more advanced at the level he's at than Jalen was coming out of school. So I think they have some similarities, but I think Willis does have more upside. And again, if you're just banking on one of them to be a star, I think Jalen Hurts has the higher floor of what you can rely on year after year. But if you want to be great at quarterback and not just good, Willis is the riskier play. But I think he would be the smarter play if that's what you're aiming for.
Also, your Senior Bowl coverage. Louis DiBiase is down there in Mobile, Alabama, and you can follow him at Locked On Birds for everything birds and beyond. Thanks, Louis, for joining us today.
Thanks, Cal. Appreciate it.